Have you ever been in a situation where you felt paralyzed? A situation in which you came head to head with your worst nightmare? Maybe you were being chased by a dog. Maybe you were stuck in an elevator. Or perhaps had to address a room full of people while giving a speech. Or maybe even a TED talk. These are all examples of fears that most of us have encountered at some point or the other that have left us feeling fearful, powerless, and weak. Recently, I found myself in a similar situation. No, it's not what you think. I wasn't chased by a dog, nor was I stuck in an elevator. I had to face something far worse: numbers. Sometimes I feel as though the world is divided into two parts: those who like math and those who don't. I'm sure you all can figure out what category I fit into. Math and I are like gunpowder and a box of matches. In other words, a disaster just waiting to happen. Don't believe me? Well then, allow me to take you on a journey back in time to what I like to call my dark ages. A period of bone-chilling horror, a period of intense fear and despair, a period full of math. It all began in grade 1 when I, an innocent little child, was not just introduced but thrust headfirst into the formidable land of math. I had to face deathly long division sums, monstrous multiplication questions, and all subtraction left me with was sorrow. I realized from a very young age that math and I could never be friends. We simply couldn't understand each other. These misunderstandings only intensified when I was stabbed through the thigh with a pencil while trying to solve a math sum by a close member of my family, whose identity, for legal reasons, shall remain a secret. Now, apart from getting stabbed while doing math, an experience that will leave anyone traumatized, I was often behind my peers in class and struggled to do the simplest sums, which left me feeling greatly inadequate. I suppose it's from here that my hatred of math stemmed. I mean, why should I care about a subject that has caused me nothing but pain and suffering from the very beginning? It had started off as a joke, with me making derogatory comments and snide remarks about math at every chance I got. I made my distaste towards this subject extremely clear, and in doing so, unknowingly, in my mind, created what is known as a mental block. All of my friends, my parents, and even my teachers pointed this out. A mental block, they explained, was a psychological obstacle or limiting mindset that prevents you from completing important tasks and achieving success. That sounds about right. After doing hours of intense scientific research, I diagnosed myself with something known as numerophobia, which is an exaggerated, constant, and irrational fear of numbers, which prevents you from solving mathematical problems and makes it seem as though it's a Herculean task. Symptoms of numerophobia include intense anxiety when dealing with numbers, muscle tension, shakiness, and even a sense of helplessness, which in some cases can lead to intense anxiety attacks. It's tough because numbers are everywhere. Some even argue that the universe itself is comprised entirely of mathematics. But why is it that this thought is nowhere near as terrifying as the idea of giving a math exam? Okay, so I'm sure we all can agree that we use math and its various configurations in daily life. For example, algebra is commonly calculated without nary a thought. Yet, give it a name, call it algebra, and the brain freezes more solidly than an iceberg in the Arctic Ocean. Can you believe, for the longest time, I resisted the movie Life of Pi because I thought it has something to do with numbers? Now here's the thing. It was clear that I had an obstacle. How on earth was I to tear it down? As it is with most literal brick walls, they're commonly torn down using one method. From my limited experience, brick walls are commonly torn down using brute force or violence. So, I adopted that philosophy. Before every math exam, I had to prepare myself as though I was going to war, as though the numbers were my sworn enemies. I had to defeat them at any cost. So in the battleground in my head, it was always Mahira versus math, a battle to the death. Only one would remain standing. Do you see the problem here? Much later on, I realized that in reality, there was no such battle. It wasn't that dramatic. It was simply a bunch of questions printed on a paper. But was it really that simple? I guess you'll find out. Approximately 3 weeks ago, I gave my math board exam for the final time. Or so I thought. After spending years solving one paper after the other, after spilling one tear after the other, I thought I had finally torn my walls down, not realizing that in the process, I had made a grave mistake. For mental walls aren't meant to be smashed. They're meant to be dismantled, one brick at a time. So, I went into the examination hall confident and optimistic, but came out shaking and sweaty, leaving behind the ripped pieces of my answer paper. It was an act fueled by years of unsuccessfully trying to tame this beast inside me that just seemed to grow bigger and bigger day by day. It left me exhausted. Tearing the paper made me feel as though a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a brief flash of satisfaction. Even though in the moment it felt as though I'd won, it was a short-lived victory. To my chagrin, tearing the paper didn't automatically make my fear or my problem disappear. It was then that I had an epiphany. I realized that each and every one of us have some sort of phobia or another. We're all haunted by some sort of ghost, some sort of fear. Fear of heights, the fear of needles, the fear of failure, the fear of math. Like so many people, I believed that if I just ignored these fears, just blocked them out, they would eventually go away. As you can see, they didn't. I realized that just like ghosts, these fears gain strength in darkness. If you run from them, they run faster. If you push them away, they just push back harder until you're backed into a corner. So, what are we supposed to do? It has taken an extremely traumatic experience, like giving my math board exam, for me to finally figure out the answer to this question. As terrifying as it may seem, we must embrace our fear. We must welcome them into our lives as though they are a part of us, because they are a part of us. It's only when we accept their presence will they make room for new opportunities. Thus, I learned a lifelong lesson. Luckily, I have been offered a second chance, another shorter redemption. I am now preparing to take both math papers again in the next exam series. Yes, I am still scared. But will I let that stop me? Absolutely not. It's time the wall finally comes down, piece by piece. Another battle awaits me, but this time it's going to be me and math versus my fear. Thank you.